By mid-6th century AD, many chroniclers of their day already sensed doom. In 2018, Harvard historian Michael McCormick declared 536 AD the beginning of one of the worst periods to be alive, if not the worst year in history. In the year 536, a Byzantine historian named Procopius wrote, quote, "The sun gave forth its light without brightness. It seemed exceedingly like the sun in eclipse," end quote. 2 years later, Roman statesman Cassiodorus described the uncanny skies. The sun's rays were weak and bluish, noon cast no shadows, and even the full moon was empty of her natural splendor. These ominous reports across the Mediterranean and Near East mark 536 AD as a global volcanic winter, as possible simultaneous volcano eruptions happened in Iceland, United States, and Canada. Hello, and welcome to Deadliest Disasters. In Europe, the unusual cold and darkness had immediate catastrophic effects. Irish records noted a failure of bread in 536 and again through 539, meaning harvest failed and grain ran out. The mid-10th century Annals Cambriae event linked 537 AD to, quote, "great mortality in Britain and Ireland," end quote, during the legendary Battle of Camlin. Contemporary writers in Gaul and other regions noted dust-like fogs and terrible cold that ruined crops. In a matter of months, peasants faced famine and inflation. Procopius wrote in 536, quote, "Men were free neither from war nor pestilence, nor any other thing leading to death," end quote. With food scarce, rulers and armies struggled. Records from that time mention the need to dip into granaries just to survive. In one recording, even an Egyptian tax document notes a dramatic rise in grain prices in 536. It said grain had become 100 times more expensive. Across Western Europe, the shock set off food riots, political unrest, and widespread starvation. Medieval sources uniformly report mass crop failures. For example, the Irish Annals of Ulster note failure of bread in 536 AD. Chroniclers in Gaul and Britain describe gray skies, frozen springs, and harvests turned to rot. In many regions, people reportedly had to ration or use livestock feed just to make bread. With famine comes disease, then migration, and finally conflict. Food shortages likely fueled ongoing wars. The Gothic Wars in Italy began in 535, for instance. With society strained, crime and violence rose. Many villages emptied as starving refugees wandered in search of food. The Eastern Roman Empire, known as the Byzantine Empire, also suffered intensely. In Constantinople, the sky darkened by March 536, and Emperor Justinian's forces were already waging costly wars in Italy and Persia. Historian Procopius recorded that, quote, "the sun gave forth its light without brightness for the whole year," end quote, an omen that horrified the citizens. Within 5 years, the situation became even grimmer. The first wave of the Justinian plague struck in 541 to 542 AD. Contemporary sources and later analysis estimate the plague killed roughly 1/3 to 1/2 of Constantinople's people, perhaps equaling millions dead and the empire overall. Roman leadership was shaken, armies were decimated, tax revenues collapsed, and survivors endured famine in the streets. The combined effects of plague, war, and dark skies have led scholars to describe mid-6th century Byzantium as devastated. Harvard historian Michael McCormick wrote the once great cities of the Mediterranean turned into scenes of panic and misery. Far to the east, Chinese and Central Asian records independently report a great cold and hunger in 536 AD. Official histories of the northern and southern dynasties describe unseasonal, hail, and drought in late 536. For example, one chronicle notes that in September 536, several provinces in North China were hit by hail and a great famine ensued. Officials had to send inspectors to care for roving refugee clans, many of whom were starving. By December, an extraordinary decree ordered relief for famished refugees on the plains north of the Yellow River. Perhaps worst of all, one sobering entry from late 536 or early 537 in the Baishi history records that in the land within the passes of Shaanxi province people resorted to cannibalism. Up to 80% of their population died. But summers did not bring relief. In July and August of 537, frost and even snow were recorded in northeastern China, ruining the crops. These Chinese sources make it clear, the same climate calamity darkening Europe was freezing Asia. In a single year, vast swaths of human population went hungry, cold, and weak. The volcanic winter of 536 also left its mark in the Western Hemisphere. While written records are lacking, archaeological evidence signals climate stress. In the Andes, tree ring and lake records show a severe drought around 536 and 537 that corresponds with collapse phases in the Mochi culture. In what is now Mexico, the great metropolis of Teotihuacan shows signs of rapid decline in the mid-6th century. Some scholars even link Teotihuacan's fall around 550 AD to the same extended period of drought and famine. Likewise, oral traditions of other cultures and even ice cores from Antarctica hint at volcanic ash in the southern hemisphere. These clues suggest that even distant societies felt the ripple effects, from crop failures in Peru to increased warfare in the Maya lands, though the specifics remain unclear. Today, scientists have proven that something extraordinary happened in 536. Tree ring studies show that oaks in Ireland grew almost no rings in 536 and again in 542, indicating consecutive crop failures. Meanwhile, polar ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica reveal a massive spike in sulfate aerosols dated to 535 and 536 AD, even larger than the 1816 Tambora eruption event. Such a sulfate layer can only come from a huge volcanic eruption or a series of eruptions that lofted sulfur high into the stratosphere. Atmospheric models confirm the outcome. Reconstruction of northern hemisphere summer temperatures in 536 and 537 show drops of up to 1.5 to 3 degrees Celsius compared to normal. And this cooling was not brief. Scientists call it the late antique Little Ice Age. Tree rings and glaciers indicate the cold spell started in 536 and only gradually eased by the mid-600s. Today, historians conclude the climate collapse of 536 was triggered by one or more concurrent volcanic eruptions, most plausibly a high-latitude Icelandic eruption, possibly paired with major eruptions in the Mono Inyo, Aleutian, and/or northern Cordilleran volcanic provinces in the western United States and Canada. These eruptions injected massive amounts of sulfur dioxide and ash into the stratosphere, dimming sunlight and cooling temperatures across Europe, Asia, and North America. Subsequently, this triggered widespread famine, societal collapse, and disease outbreaks that ushered in the late antique Little Ice Age, lasting until about 660 AD. The world suffered continuous warfare and a string of plague pandemics. Many scholars now argue that these events precipitated great transitions. The Western Roman Empire finally gave way to new kingdoms. The Sassanid Empire weakened, and Gupta Empire in India fell apart. In Europe, Celtic and Germanic societies were reshaped by famine migrations. In China, the northern and southern dynasties dissolved into new regimes amid chaos. In the Middle East and North Africa, cities shrank or were abandoned after repeated plagues. Historian David Keyes provocatively suggests that 536 to 550 AD unleashed the dominoes of history, the collapse of ancient empires and the rise of new civilizations. The Arab Caliphate and Turkic Khanates may all have roots in this era's catastrophes. Though Keyes' broad thesis is debated, the consensus is clear. The mid-6th century as a whole was one of the most convulsive periods in history. All the evidence from ancient chronicles to modern ice cores paints 536 as a turning point of calamity. On the one hand, the sheer array of misfortunes in the single year is staggering. Darkened sun, crop failures, and pestilence on a global scale, leading one scholar to declare 536 a particularly grim chapter, to put it lightly. On the other hand, the crisis did not end in December of 536. A series of volcanic winters, famines, and plagues followed, turning the entire late 6th century into a prolonged dark age. Whether one marks the peak at 536 or spreads it across decades, the lesson is the same. Earth's climate and human societies face continuous change. Thank you all for tuning in. Please like and subscribe, and let me know what other topics you'd like me to cover. This has been Deadliest Disasters.